Welcome, everybody, to the Family Biz Show. I'm your host, Michael Columbus, with Family Wealth and Legacy in Rochester, New York. Today, we have Derrik Kassebaum from CosmosCorp, and very, very cool company. I think there's very few of you out there that look at the world the way that you do, where it's both pets and people.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique. So welcome to the show, Derrik.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here.
We have a tradition of tell us your unique story of how you entered the family business, and then after that we'll dive into more of the history and of the business itself.
Oh, sure. Well, it's funny you asked that question. I wasn't going to say I wrote a book, but I wrote a book, and I think it's in my second chapter of the book was telling that story. I graduated high school in 1989, and I went to a Catholic high school. It's all guys high school, and I went there. My parents sent me there because I didn't do too well in the public school. So my dad was just starting the company, and I'll tell a little bit about the company in low future from here. But it was just my dad and my older brother in the company, starting the company at the time, and there were 237 guys that was in my graduating class. And at our graduation, the priest said, I'm so glad that there's 237 gentlemen that are graduating today, and 236 have either applied or been accepted into the university. And I leaned over to my buddy and I said, I know who didn't. And, I was that one. But my dad actually took me out to McDonald's. It was funny. He took me to McDonald's and he said, hey, you could either go off and spend 4 years at college and you're going to end up with this much debt at the end, and you're going to end up with this much money, making this much money, or you can come work for me, which he had nothing to offer me, and I'll give you $600 a month. You can still live at home, but you're going to pay $200 a month in rent and $200 a month in insurance. And I said, I'll take it. So that's kind of how I started. I just didn't want to go to college. I wanted anything but college, and I had no other opportunity except for a small company that my dad was starting at that time out of his basement.
How cool is that? That's pretty funny. So tell me about your journey in the company then, because obviously that was many, many years ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, how your father started it. Where did this all come from?
So let's just jump from the beginning. I'll just take 2 seconds here, 2 and 2, like they used to say on a TV show. My dad was a barber. He became a barber right out of the military in the 60s and 70s, did very well at it. We weren't very wealthy, but he did well as a barber. In 1980, he was offered the opportunity to buy a distribution center that sold supplies to him. So he jumped on that bandwagon, spent $250,000 and bought the company. And a few weeks later, found out that the guy kind of fudged the numbers, and there were $200,000 worth of inventory that had not been paid for. So now a company that was worth $250,000, he now owed $450,000 for. Oh. And he spent the next years just struggling. My mom and dad actually wanted to go in the mission field to just help the poor and needy around the world. And they thought this was their ticket to do that because he could never do it as a barber. Well, now he's stuck. And so this is where he learned his faith. He would wake up every morning. I'll never forget it. 3 o'clock in the morning and pray. And, he's a screamer when he prays. He's just yelling, and he's just like, God, please help us. Don't let us go bankrupt. And that went on for years until 1985. He gets a call from a dog groomer. And the dog groomer said, hey, I was in a beauty shop getting my hair done the other day. The product that they used on it was pretty good. Can I get that for dogs? My dad said, I don't know. Let me check. So he called the guy who was making the product. He said, can you make this for dogs? And the guy goes, yeah, we'll just put a different label on it. So at the beginning, they stuck a different label on it. Then through a couple of years later, we started manufacturing actually a product for dogs, a shampoo specifically for the pH and the balance for dogs. And got started that way. And like I said, in 1989, he closed down all the beauty supply stuff, moved it to his basement of his house. We rented a 1,500 square foot little warehouse, got a 100-gallon vat, and started making shampoo for dogs. I didn't want to do anything except for, make a buck here and there. So when I graduated high school, my dad offered me to go into sales. and I took him up on it. And what that meant was he gave me $350 a week, and I would put a bunch of shampoo in my car, and I drive 3,000 miles a week, knocking on dog grooming shop doors, sleeping in my car. I slept in my car for 5 years straight. I'd come home on the weekends, pick up some more product, go back out. Yeah, of course, I had different weeks that I'd be in town, but yeah, I learned the hard way of selling. But what that developed in me is the sales integrity and what it took to actually grow a company. And there's three other brothers and my dad. We all built the company at the same time, and it allowed me to move into what my final role was before I turned it over in 2018 to a new executive team, which was the vice president of sales and marketing for our company. And we built it up to where, we're selling now in 72 different countries. We sell to every major retailer in the United States. We have the #1 dental product for dogs around the world. It's just God that kind of did that. So that's kind of my history.
That's very, very cool. You and three brothers. Let's talk about that. I mean, was it you and three brothers from day one, pretty much?
We grew up in a small town with I said, my dad was a barber. So I also have two sisters. My dad offered all of us to come into the company, basically tried to twist our arm and get us all in. My two sisters said no. They both wanted to be teachers. My oldest brother came in with my dad when it was Beauty Supply Warehouse back in 1981. Another brother came in 1988. He was an aerospace engineer, but there was no money to be made in that at the time. So he came in, he started manufacturing the shampoo. I came in sales, and then my younger brother came in as kind of like, in St. Louis, Missouri, we have the St. Louis Cardinals. There's a guy named Jose Oquendo who played all positions. My youngest brother played all positions. Then he moved into our IT department and kind of built our IT department for us. But yeah, it was just three brothers, and we learned how to play well and argue well when we were younger. And I would say we did business well, and we argued a lot more. And that's what you do in family. So
That's great. You mentioned a book. Come on, you got to tell us the title of the book.
Yeah, so I developed a book. I wrote a book in 2020. Spent 2 years writing it. It's called Live and Let Go, and it's called Releasing Your Hold to Pursue God's Purpose. It's things in my life that I had to let go of and able to actually find the purpose that I was supposed to step to in my life, including in 2018, turning over my role in the company to a new executive team.
Interesting. It's funny that you're doing this interview right now, or doing this show, because that is pretty much what I'm working on for me right this second. Like, I'm trying to control too much and trying to make it all happen, and I'm not letting go. And that's we may have to talk afterwards about that. But you know what? This could be helpful for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had no idea that this was going to go, because I had no idea about the book. But talk about some of the premises that led you to the concept.
Yeah. So in 2011 and 12, I had a stroke. In 2011, I think I was 39 years old, something like that, and I had my first stroke. In 2012, I had a second stroke in September, and then in 2013, they just fixed a little hole in my heart. A lot of people have it, that basically the blood clot was going through the hole, short my brain. That's kind of what happens, with a stroke. And so I had to sit around for a couple months and do nothing while this thing that they put in my heart was healing. And, I read a couple of different books and things like that. But from that time forward until 2019, so from 2012, 2019, I walked through a process in my life that I'm a believer in God. I know that He's directed my life and that He's been good to me and challenged me all at the same time to be that person that He's called me to be, that He's created me to be. And during that time, there were many things in my life that I was growing up through that I had to let go of. Things of attitudes, things that were hidden in my life, things that, I had kids. How do I take a child through teenage years to adult years and then sit back and cross my arms and kind of, hope to say nothing. And because they know a lot. And so there's scenes of letting go of your, in family. There's scenes of letting go of, in attitudes. There's scenes of letting go in business that you just know there's the right time. We knew in 2015 we needed to let go of some of the leadership issues that we had, but we couldn't do it. We just literally were holding on tight, myself and my brothers, until 2017, where I believe in September 2017, God literally reached in, grabbed our hands, and pulled the company off our hands through something we had to walk through. So letting go is very difficult in many aspects of life. But there's a story in the Bible that says that unless a seed falls to the ground, no fruit will be produced. That seed usually comes from a dying fruit. And so unless what was once healthy fruit can die and go into the ground, it can never produce again. So how do we produce more unless we die to ourselves?
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And it's I have not. It's kind of. I just recorded another episode earlier today where we were talking with a family that their family lived through the Holocaust, Jewish family, and with everything that's going on in Israel right now, we had a nice conversation, probably 20 minutes long before we started recording, to dive into things. So now we flip over to the Catholic side, the Christian side of things today. For those of you listeners who don't believe in God in that manner, whether you want to call it life, the universe, there are just nature. There's a power that is bigger than all of us. And I am a firm believer that it's letting go and paying attention to the voice, paying attention to the calling, paying attention to, God's directions, however you want to look at it. I want to make sure that, that you understand that you can take this from a Buddhist perspective or a Christian or a Jewish perspective, and and it all works. Muslim perspective, it all works. In that, I love the fact that Derrik, you are pronouncing and saying, this is how I view it and this is how I look at it. And I think that's powerful. I appreciate you. Not everybody has. I've done 100 shows almost now, and not everybody, has that conversation with me. So appreciate that you have the faith to do that.
No worries. That's why I wrote the book. Sales aren't that great. I'm horrible at selling books. Great at dog shampoo. But I gave it because I would ride on planes and I tell people my story, just tidbits of this and that, and they go. And I just felt I want something to give to somebody, just to say, hey, maybe this will help you out. Yeah. And that's kind of why I'm on here today. Is I just I think there's things that we walk through in business that may help someone, may be that nugget to go, that's what I needed.
Yeah. So talk about, it's really interesting, though Dad was the founder, at some levels, the five of you were the founders, and working through this together and, floundering and flourishing at different times as you're doing things. Do you mind sharing a couple of the stories of, the relationships as a family, of where you might have gotten stuck and how you work through those periods of stuckness? And maybe, another story where, because we were family, because of the things that were going on, it allowed us to flourish.
Yeah. When we started, like I said, the way we started was this dog groomer called my dad and said, hey, can the product that they were actually looking for also at that time was this sprayer that they were using for spraying hairspray and shampoo on ladies' hairs at a beauty shop. And she said, I think I could save a lot of money if I use this in my dog grooming shop. So my dad started renting them to dog groomers. And that really kind of set him into the dog grooming industry. And then they were asking for shampoo, and we created shampoo. Well, my dad and my brother built the shampoo system end of the company. That was our future. If we could get so many rented out there and have this much money, we'd be doing well. And then we came along, we started making the shampoo even better on top of it, and a better shampoo. Now we have a brand of shampoo. We have the shampoo system. And it came down to my older brother and my dad in the early 90s saying, well, the shampoo system is the way of our future. And another brother and myself saying, well, hang on, shampoo, we only have to make 1 gallon, sell it to somebody. If they like it, they're going to keep buying it. We don't ever have to do that again, but we have to keep fixing these shampoo systems if they break down, whatever, because we're renting them out there. And that became a challenge over a 2 to 3 year period, is which way do we grow? Who's right? And we let it play out. One thing we always did as a family is, a couple things is, we all have equal shares in the company. My dad was kind enough to actually give us shares years ago, but we also decided that we would all make the same amount of money. There would never be one person that made more than the other. And we did that just because we valued each other. And you have to learn to value, as a culture, each other's giftings that they bring in. I find too many times that people get to be 70, 75, 80 years old, and they're not willing to let go of that company to the next generation because they have yet to value that the next generation has something to say or something to give. And I think my dad and my brother kind of saw that value in us, as we were able to bring something that they may not have seen. And now they're like, okay, we'll give it a try. So that was one. When we were in 2014, we actually lost 2 of our family members and employees. They worked for our company. They were killed on motorcycles coming to work. One was one was my brother's brother-in-law, who was my best friend since he was 6 years old. And another one was a young man that was to marry my niece a month later. And they were both, a bus pulled out in front of them. One hit the front, one hit the back. And in 2015, it happened in March 11, 2014. It was a tragedy. It was hard for the entire family. It was because we were a family company. But we had to start making a transition from family to corporate because we were growing at such a fast pace at that time. And like I said, between when we were between 2015 and 17, we just knew that we couldn't do it anymore. As the entrepreneur, as a family business, you had to bring in someone else who knew a little bit more than you. And we were great at taking risks. We were great at launching products with a lot of risk. We were horrible at managing staff. We're horrible at corporate culture. We're horrible at these things. And we had to bring in the next generation to be able to do that. And that's a part of letting go. Again, that's valuing the next generation, that they have something to say that you may not know. I don't know if that answers what you look for.
Yeah, no. So today then, how is there, when you say bring in the next generation, are they family, non-family? What does that look like inside of, your organization today?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. Okay. My mom and dad had 6 children. Those 6 children had 27 children. So I have 27 nieces and nephews. I have one who's the director of our business development. And then we have a nephew-in-law who's actually our CEO. He married my niece, and his name's Landon Hobson. Brilliant man. He's got 3 masters, and just he's got talent beyond measure. And then we have 4 other family members that are anywhere from high level to mid-level leaders in our company.
No, you saw my face, and I just a couple of things just happened here for me. One, you did something in the beginning of the business that worked for you guys. It doesn't work for every family, where everybody got paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we all value each other. And so we're going to just keep the pay the same, so that there's not one person that's valued over another. And one of the things that, I tell family-owned businesses all the time is, you've got to figure out, are you paying for the job, or are you paying because of the family? And so you started off with the family rules, and so I'm very, very curious today. Are family members, are they treated, are they paid the same across the board, or did you have to do that corporate thing and be like, I have to pay people based on the job that they're applying for?
Yeah, so it is a little different, because we as owners more are getting we sit on the board now, all 5 of us, and we get distributions.
Yep.
Plus a salary. So it's a small salary for being on the board. and then it's a distribution because we're ownership. The people the family members who work for us work as the value of that job. So Landon gets paid a CEO value. Bradley gets a director's role. Another one would get a manager's role for managing, because just because you have a last name or your blood happens to have a DNA does not mean that you should be differently paid than a person walking in who has a skill set that probably is equal or better to you. So we are very careful about what that looks like to those that are valued just as much as they are. They just don't have the same DNA.
Right. And that goes back to your process of letting go and evolving over time, because that wasn't the thought process in the beginning. And, I have met many families where we're into the second or third generation and they're really still stuck in thinking about it in that direction. The fact that we can't bring in non-family members and pay them more than a family member. And it's really, at some levels, really holding them back.
Yeah. And we do have a unwritten rule here that if you're a family member, you do get an opportunity, but the opportunity is equal to the next person applying for that same job. So I'll give you an example. In 2017, my oldest daughter was graduating high school, and the lady who actually runs our HR department, our director of HR, had just come on as HR. We didn't even have an HR at that time. We're now developing an executive team and we had HR. And she also used to be my daughter's high school dance coach. She knew her very well. And so she said, would your daughter like a internship this summer? And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, you can ask her, but you can't ask me. I said, because you need to value her and she needs to get that on her merit, not because of who she is. Because I want you to know, you have to be able to fire her on her merit as well if she doesn't perform to what you need her to perform. So for me, and I had to walk that through with another guy as well, that Landon, our CEO, came and said, what do you think about this family member? And just happened to be close to me as well. And I said, you need to hire them on their merit, but you need to fire them also if they need to be fired. So I think if anybody gets hired, they also need to understand I have the ability, just like anybody else, to be let go.
Yeah, that's great. You did something else that not every family does, is where you have an outlaw, an in-law that married into the family, that is now, leading as the CEO.
Yeah.
And I want to just congratulate you. I think that the families, what is it? Oh, come on. I just had a moment and now it's gone.
Let's think of it.
But, it's when we look at evolution has to happen, and it's the families that are open to change from where they were, willing to let go, as you say, and be thought-filled about what is best for the growth of this business.
Mm-hmm.
And you look to somebody that wasn't blood related to say he or she, is going to be best. And I know it's a guy in your company, but I think other people need to look at that to say, what's best for the company?
Yeah.
Not just what's best for the family.
Yeah. And, I think you just have to focus on your why over your get when you're doing these things as you're growing, because you need to understand, why did I start this company? What was the purpose? Why am I doing what I do? And you need to stay focused on that, not as opposed to what are we going to get out of it? If you're true, for us, we have a lot of employees that are 20-year employees, that are 25-year employees, that are 10-year employees. To me, they're family. I mean, you spend a lot more time with them sometimes than you do your own family. And I need to value them as much as I do the DNA family. And so with bringing in Landon, I'm actually shocked it worked, because he can walk also. He can, at any one time, because there's a lot of dynamic to family. And there's a lot of things that will be said within a family structure that would not typically probably be said in a ownership to CEO structure. We stick it out longer, and unfortunately we stick it out longer. So yeah, it's I think if you understand your why, our why is still, and it's in our mission statement. Our why is still to enrich the lives of people and their pets, support and invest in employees, provide for the poor, and do it all to the glory of God. I mean, those four things are still to our core of what we do. And if we can remain understanding of that, it doesn't matter if you're family or not family. Are you fulfilling the why of why you're here?
Yeah. And we call that, you call it the why, we call it a core purpose.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have that, because what's really cool is if the pet shampoo business evaporated, you could take that why and you could put it into education. You could take that why and find, how does that why drive us inside of rocket science, or, whatever the case may be. It's not necessarily about the products or your company. It's about the people that are there, and what is our joint why that gets us out of bed and motivates us.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about, when you look at the next 12 months for your business, what would you say are the three, the drivers, the top priorities that, the board is pushing, the advisory board, however you guys look at yourselves, and the CEO, the leadership team in the business? What do you say are the top three priorities moving forward?
That's a good question. The economy just went through one of the hardest times it's seen in a long time. Everybody's saying that there's a recession, some saying a depression coming, in a few years from now, that we haven't seen in the United States. We've always had a growth of 3%, to 20 plus over the last 20 years. I mean, God's just really blessed it that we've had that. In 2022, we did not see that. We saw actually a decrease for the first time in our company. However, all retail sales, you look at Amazon, you look at Walmart, you look at any of the leading retailers, they all had an incredibly hard Q1, Q2 of 2022. Well, when they're down, we're down because we sell retail product. When they're up, we're up. So what it allowed us to do is refocus, because we're on a fast track growth at that time. We actually did well during COVID because we had a great hand sanitizer. And so that allowed us to, make extra money and just shore up some loose ends. But coming into 2022, totally different story. So what we did is we looked and we said, what is the core of our company? And we said, what do we sell? Where do we win? And we started looking at it again, and we realized that we were off track on some of the places we were investing money, some of the areas that we were in growth. For example, we were focusing a lot of energy into China and to the European and the Brazilian market, because those were big white spaces for us. They were countries or continents that were on the growth. And of course, you have the Ukraine war, you have China shutting down because of COVID, you had China-US diplomatic relations that are not the best right now. So we had to relook at it and go, okay, within the 48 states, how do we win? Where do we focus? What's our core? So we reestablished that in 2022. Our executive team kind of put the plan together Q1, Q2 of 2023 and began rolling it out to the rest of the team. And now our focus is, it's kind of like when a batter gets a slump, you go back to the fundamentals. We're back to the fundamentals and who we were and how we got there. Okay. And that's our next 12 to 18 months is, we know what got us through for the last 35, 40 years. If we remain at that, both our core values plus our driver in the company, our brand in the company, then we should be a success. You never know what tomorrow brings, but you can at least do your best to do today well. And that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. So who got nominated to be sleeping in the cars for the next 5 years?
I'll take that one again. I loved it. That was so fun. It was the best. It was the best growth time of my life. I called it my education on wheels, because I had a lot of time to read. I had the time to listen to different things. Like you put out a podcast. We didn't have podcasts in the early 90s, but it would have been great to have them.
Absolutely. We had cassette tapes, and I remember I had the Brian Tracy Psychology of Sales, And I listened to that over and over and over again, about the same time you were on the road, probably.
That is Ziggy Ziglar.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's good stuff. And it's still classic and still good stuff today.
Yeah.
Looking at, let's talk about family and business again. How, what's it like? You said you're small town, right?
Yeah.
There are family members that are not part of the business,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they share the same, a lot of them probably share the same last name, a lot of the heritage. How do you guys do at helping people that are not involved in the business understand? And do you have a process for helping them to understand what's going on in the business so that, they can be just as proud when they're out talking to ABC on, some John Smith on the corner when they're saying, "Hey, what's going on at the company?" And they have no idea.
Yeah. So that goes back to the core of the company back in 1992. Again, my mom and dad wanted to go into the mission field. And so in 92, they actually went down to Hurricane Miami. Went down to Miami, Florida during Hurricane Andrew.
Yep.
And served down there. They picked up everything my mom and dad did and got a truck, a vehicle, and went down there and just started serving for 6 months. They did really well. Along that same time, they met 30 Guatemalans that drove a school bus all the way up through Central America, through Texas, down back to Panhandle, all the way down to Miami, Florida, and they got a connection. So what happened in 93 is my mom and dad went and bought an old 79 Ford Scout, put nice big tires on it, went to a junkyard, got some good seats on it, and began driving from St. Louis, Missouri, where we're from, all the way down to Guatemala and serving people up in the hills of Guatemala that honestly, some had never seen a white person before. And then they drive back, and then they go and they drive back, and they tell the gospel of Jesus Christ as they would go. And so they built this. Over the years, they've had the opportunity to travel the world and go into the Congo. They helped during the Albanian crisis in 97, go over there and serve with our military, serving food and bread and stuff like that to the Albanian refugees. And in 2003, my mom and dad bought a piece of property in Guatemala where they wanted to put a children's home. And in 2011, we opened this children's home for severely abused children, children that honestly parents put out for prostitution, 6-year-old girls, things like that. And then we served the needs of the people of that community. And it's just grown over the years. So why am I saying this? Because the family members not only see the value of the company as far as, oh, this is a resource to income, but it's a resource to helping do what is at the core of us, is help the poor and needy around the world and doing it to the glory of God. And can I get involved in that? And yeah, you're a part of that. Our team of employees are part of that every day when they're putting a cap on. You're helping someone somewhere. And we even today, it's Monday, November 6th, and we had Mission Monday. And I brought in a lady that does a feeding program here in the St. Louis area. And I was telling our employees, I said, you may never be able to go to Guatemala or Haiti, but you have the opportunity to go serve locally and change people locally, lives locally. And that's what we offer also at our company is we offer 5 mission days a year that our employees can take a mission day, some do it with Missouri Conservation, some do it with other things, and they go serve and they get paid 5 days a year to go serve in the community, because we believe in just taking what's been given to you and giving it back to the community. So our family members that are not involved know the good that's coming from the company.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. What's next? I just,
yeah. I just had sometimes there's pains, obstacles, things that companies go through and families go through. How do you make it through those? As you were asking you asked a question earlier, and I started thinking about that. And one thing that we've always tried to do, we weren't great at it, but we tried to do is when you walk out the door of the company, it remains the company. You keep family and business separate, because family's always going to be around. The business could go bankrupt tomorrow. And I learned this from when my daughters used to have friends over, and I have 2 daughters, and they're 40 years apart. They were probably 12 and 8, let's say. And
Okay.
they're arguing one day with, and they had 3 friends over. And they're arguing, well, this friend, that friend. And I took them both aside. I said, listen, your friends will be gone, but you will remain sisters forever. I said, you need to not argue with each other like you do with your friends. You need to care for each other. And that's the same in business. You need to leave business as business and keep family separate. And, on your best day, you can control yourself. You can't control anybody else. And they're going to do stuff you don't like. They're going to do stupid things. They're going to say something to you in a way you're taking offensive. The best thing you can do is just remain humble and go talk it through with them and just say, what did you mean by that? You got to help me understand because I don't understand. And we're family. We got to get through this.
There's many books out there, how to have critical conversations, bunches of them. I think that's one of the tools that, especially if you're going to be working in a family business, we need to get better at our communication with each other. A lot of times, they'll say that in a corporate world, we would have never treated somebody or talked to them the way that we might inside of a family business.
Yeah.
And in like you just said with your daughters, at the end of the day, it's family is the ones that deserve the best from us on a regular basis. And so, you have to do that work and figure out that balance to say, how can I better understand what Uncle Jim or, Aunt Teresa was talking about? And how do I understand their perspective rather than jumping to conclusions about where they were going and what they were doing?
That's right. That's right. And one thing that we've done in the company, I guess it was 3 years ago. It's about 3 years ago. We had a gentleman come to us who does videos, and we actually asked him. We said, we know why we built the company, and we now have passed it on. What we would say, passing on to the 3rd generation. Landon runs it. We have a few other members of the family in it, but we are also 100% family ownership owned, and we figured out how to do that. It took about a 3-year process, and I can talk about that. But we had him in, and we said, what we want to make sure is that the next generation, whoever they are, understands why we originally started this and some of the things we went through. So we spent a 2-year period, literally, I think he did maybe 60 hours of video of myself, my brothers, and my mom and dad, just asking questions, why we did things, what we went through, what did we learn, along the way, what mistakes did we make. And he comprised that to an hour and 20-minute video that now is able to be passed on to the next generation.
That's powerful. There's power. I tell people this all the time, power in stories, and having those conversations and understanding where we came from and why is you can write up here's what you should do, going forward. But if you tell me how to do something, it's nowhere near as powerful as telling me why.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Talk about family ownership. You hit on that for a second. Talk about that for a little bit.
Sure. We were all, like I said, equal partners. So if you take 100 shares and you divide them out, we're all 20% owners.
Okay.
And about 3 years ago, we were trying to figure out how we could legacy the family into these shares. My mom and dad gave us shares. It's a little bit different as the company grew from a little bit to now a bigger bit. And we're trying to figure it out. So we brought in our CPA firm, who's just brilliant. It's a large CPA firm in St. Louis, Missouri. Brought in some trust attorneys, and we started walking this through of asking questions. What does each family member want? What do you see? How does that look? And across the board, our heart was to pass on what we built. I own 20% of the company. I would really like, and for 28 years, I traveled a lot. I'd really like my kids somehow, some way to get some value of what their dad gave up for them, in future years without ruining them in the 3rd generation of giving them a lot of stock. And so how do you do that? And I had another brother that wanted to give it to him immediately. He's in a different area of life, an older brother, different area of life. and his kids were kind of ready for that next step. So walking it through, we actually built a thing called an iDigit, and we
Potentially defective grantor trust. There you go.
and it allowed us to, because we still need to get a distribution, allowed us to sell it into there through the distributions, and then still it pay us through the money that was going in through the distribution. Allowed us to build a family legacy that we could pass this on into our own entity families. And then outside of that, if we wanted to gift shares to another family member, let's just say one of them came on after Landon was our CEO. We just want, I have 2 kids, another has 5, and so my kids are going to get more. I can share it out to them. Within both, but we had to talk this through. It was not easy. It was a 2-year walkthrough. What I praise God about is there was no yelling. No one ever walked from the table. We were able to just, each of us, tell what was on our heart to make it happen. Give it to the professionals. Let them feed us back some stuff. Again, shake it up. Give it back to the professionals. Again, shake it up without saying, well, you always want this or you that. I think you leave the yous out of it and you let the professionals work it out there's no, I was listening to one of your other podcasts. There's no set way for doing any one company. It just is impossible. Every person is different and every company is different. And that will work for us.
Yeah. I'll throw to you my, how do I say this? My family business coach radar is going off.
Uh-huh.
And I mean this with all the respect, and I'm hoping to add value in our conversation to you.
Yes.
The preparing the business for the heirs is one side of it, and that's the idjit and the technical and the attorneys and whatnot. I would throw to you that there's also the other side of preparing the heirs for the assets. And so there's a yin and yang inside of there. Jay and Lisa Daniels from Lodge Cast Iron, the cast, they did an episode with me way back. I would highly recommend grabbing that episode because they've got, and we talk about it in the episode, about 50 family members, more than 50 family members that own the company. And I believe there's only 2 family members that work in the company.
Wow.
So, and that was what I was relating to you. And you don't have, it's a little different right now, but it's like the family members that aren't in the business. And eventually you're going to have family members that aren't in the business that are owners of the business, or you're starting to do that now. And there's this balance between that there's, what I would say, issues that come from that you have no idea, because you guys are here to communicate, but in 50 years from now, you won't be here to communicate it likely.
Yeah. So our response to that was, y'all deal with that. No,
not uncommon.
No. And and I appreciate that. And I will listen to it. And legacy is not just the financial end of it. Legacy is just so much more what you just spoke about. And for us, what we developed was a plan of, you have to be, this level to actually be a voting share. Otherwise, you get a value of the financial, but you get no value of the say. And I have 2 daughters. One, she's on a fast track to be a NICU doc, and she's never going to want to be selling dog shit. I have another one who, she's brilliant in IT, and she's a developer in IT and project manager in that, and she doesn't know. She worked for us for a point, and then she's just like, yeah, I don't know if I want family business, and because she wanted to create her value for herself. And I appreciate that. I will listen to that one, and that's the part of that I would say, you haven't just arrived when you figured it out to this degree. You got until the day you lay your head.
Go ahead.
Until the day, if you own a company, until the day you lay your head in the grave, there's going to be those challenges that you've got to keep asking, you got to keep learning, you got to keep seeking advice.
Yeah. And you guys have done a great job of learning and letting go and changing and evolving over time. There's probably not too many episodes. Just Jay and Lisa's is the one that came to mind. Anything with, Jay Hughes, the ones with, some of the consultants. I think you'd get a lot out of them as well. Obviously, it's fun to listen to other families and how they handled those things. But I've been studying family businesses for years, and part of an organization called the Purposeful Planning Institute. And people that have listened to this before, they've heard me talk about it. But what the Purposeful Planning Institute, the whole idea behind it is exactly what I was talking about. And Roy Williams from the Williams Group talks about this. It's, the issues are never with the technical. That's not the issues. The attorneys and accountants will do a great job of helping you avoid taxes and do all the right things from a standpoint of estate planning and tax planning, investment planning, and you'll be fine. But then you start throwing in communication between people and trust and just the differences in personalities, and it's the people side of it that ends up making the quagmire. And there's an old saying. It's in every heritage that's out there. Shirt sleeves are shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It's nor but a clog and a clog between 3 generations. Rice paddy to rice paddy, from stalls to stars to stalls. So it continues out there. And a lot of times advisors will push on it as a negative, not for nothing, but S&P 500 companies typically don't last more than 15 years nowadays. And so you guys have already beat that. You're into the 2nd generation, you're moving to the 3rd in a successful manner. And it's this next step of figuring out, how does the family, both the ones that are owners, both the ones that are, making the decisions, and those that are working. You might have family members that work in the business, don't own anything.
Right.
And so how do we put that stuff together and open up the communication at a different level, and continue to do those things? And like I said, it's never the technical side. It's always the people side. So you will love to dig into some of the other episodes, and I think there's a lot for you there.
Love it.
All right. So you're sitting in front of an audience of multi-generation family businesses, and you're on a panel, and they ask you a couple questions. So I'm just going to, let's go through the questions together. What are your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice for people in a family business today? What would you be telling them? Or, don't miss these things.
Don't do it. The first thing is, so we have 5 core values in our company. And the first is be honest and humble. And, I think that would be one of the first things, is just be honest and humble that you ain't all that. You have a lot to bring to the table, but another family member does as well, because as you were saying earlier, we're all different. And I do not think a lot like one of my older brothers. We just think differently. Yet he brings so much value to the table in his thought process, and I do as well. But I have to understand, sometimes I need to yield and just know I am not right in this, and it's okay to let someone else be right. You just have to be honest and humble within that. And you said it earlier. It's actually funny. It's our second, one of our second core values of our company is being clear in your communication of what you're trying to say and how you're trying to say it, because we're 2 different people. We don't hear the same thing when something comes out of our mouth.
Agreed.
Yeah. Duck Dynasty, Duck Commander came out with the Duck Dynasty show years ago. And I probably watched one of the first shows. We had the privilege of making them product during their 6-month run before they kind of tanked real quick. But I got to meet them and spend time with them. But in that show, at the one of his very first airings, he says, the greatest thing about being in family business is you get to be in family business with your family. The worst thing is you're in business with your family. And you must understand that you grew up with this person. If you're in family, they knew you before business. You didn't probably just end up in business and their family. Um, they know your ins and outs. They know what makes you tick, and they know what ticks you off. And sometimes they're okay with ticking you off.
Yep.
So just understand. I guess the other one, that the second part of that would be what I said earlier. Leave it at the door. You've got to learn that business is business and family is family.
Love it. What is your favorite family tradition?
So we grew up. My dad was a barber. He loved to trout fish. For some reason, we went camping one time, and a guy taught him how to trout fish, and we love trout fishing. So honestly, to get away and trout fish as a family is just brilliant. The second part of that, my sisters probably wouldn't say that. So as a family, we love get-togethers, and unfortunately, my mom and dad are older, and it's harder to bring a get-together together with 70 different people. But we love our family get-togethers.
Great. Last question for you is, for a new family business member, or just new to the business, new to business, what are some of the top learning things that you've learned through the years, and in terms of like organizations or books or trainings that you've been a part of? What were some of the things that were critical to your growth through the years?
Yeah, it's really funny you asked that. In 2013, I was reading a book. I think it was 2013, 2012 or 13. Yeah, 13. I got stuck in Hong Kong, and the company that I was supposed to meet with said they couldn't meet with me. So I'm on a 30-floor tower overlooking a construction area, reading a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I'm reading about it. And then they came out with the next book, How the Great Fell. And it's really interesting to me because I think that's family business to a core, those two books, because the Good to Great tells how they went from just being a good company to a great company. We went from being a good company to a great company. You mentioned it a couple of times, and I only say it because it's by the grace of God that we're able to do this. But how the great fell is they were not willing to change. They were stuck in the way that they always did it. And I think those two books are great reads for someone starting a family company, because you understand how you go from good to great. And you understand, if you get to great, how to be careful that you don't become the one that fell. And you have to be have to be willing to listen. If you want to be good at a family company, become good at listening and shut your mouth and just trying to hear what someone else has to say. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
no, that's awesome. It's one of my favorite books. And you know what, the companion book to that is not one that I've talked about on the show before, but I think it's really important to understand this is good to great, and this is how the great fell. I love that. Jim Collins just did a live event in Chicago, not far from you, last month, and a bunch of my buddies took their clients to the event, and they just said he's still amazing. And just he took one item and spent the whole day talking about that one item, and it was mind-blowing. So
wow,
pretty powerful guy.
Yeah. And I'll say the last one, and I'm going to put a plug in for my father, who's 81 years old. So a few years back, it was about 10, 12 years back, we always meet on Monday mornings and pray as a family before we start as a company. So it's myself, my brothers, my dad. And then my dad would tell us about his mission work, and he'd tell us stories after he came back. And one day I said, Dad, you need to write these down in a book. You need to tell your story. So he actually wrote a book called He Will Make a Way. And it's those stories. It's called Miracles Are the Normal Way God Lives in His People. Yes, it talks about the Christianity, if you want to call it the religious background that my dad got to. But there's so much value that I've heard from people over the years that have just read the book, because he tells the story of the company. He tells the story of how he went into the mission field, how he grew both of these at the same time, and the struggles they went through. So it may be it's an easy read. You could probably download the book in 4 to 6 hours. It's a great book on and it's not for selling it. It's just if you want to know why we do and how we do it and how we made it, that's probably in the book.
Love it. Derrik, this has been a real pleasure. I got a lot out of our conversation today. I'm positive that many, many people will get something out of this at different stages. I'm always touched when I get an email from people that listen to it that said, I've had 2 over the last couple of months. Can I be on your show? That story that you shared, that you did that interview with so-and-so, and I want to share our story. And so, it just really appreciate you being willing to share your story. You don't know, who that's going to touch and how it's going to impact somebody's life, whether it be tomorrow or 20 years from now, because this will be out there. It's in the world forever now.
Right. No, awesome. Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. And I so love just being able to tell the story. And if anybody would ever does listen to it and want to contact me, please feel free. I would love to help anybody out in any way I could.
Appreciate that. Derrik from CosmosCorp, I really appreciate everything that you've done for us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Columbus. I'm with Family Wealth and Legacy in Rochester, New York, and you've been listening to the Family Biz Show. Have a great day, and we can't wait to entertain you and share some more stories on the next episode of the Family Biz Show. Take care, everybody.